It has been a hot minute since I did a palette ranking. And when I say a hot minute, I mean a hot minute. We're talking the last ranking that I did was quite literally my yearly palette ranking where I rank all the palettes that I tried throughout a full year. So I have not ranked a single palette that I've tried in 2025. I also will be including, I don't know exactly how many, but there's gonna be like maybe 5 or so palettes here from the end of 2024 that I'm also going to be ranking. I am literally just coming back to you, letting you know how I feel about these palettes after I've had them in my possession for a bit, telling you which ones I prefer, which ones I don't prefer. Sometimes it's going to be about quality, sometimes it's going to be about color story, a lot of times it's going to be about preference, like what do I want in a palette? Why do I feel drawn to this one? But I will try my very best to explain my decisions to you, and we will start at the very bottom and we will end at the very top. And I don't think a single person will be, I was thinking about top 3, I don't think anyone will be surprised, at least that the ones that are in the top, because I think when you see them you're gonna be like, of course. So at the very bottom, I am actually going to put the Glam Light and Coca-Cola. This is the original one. This one is this one is full with hair. Don't look at that. This one is a red and brown and black thing with the silver. This is not great quality. Okay, this is okay quality. This is the same quality as the Kiss palette is, which is that it's fine. The shimmers are literally nothing to write home about. They're a very classic shimmer / metallic formula, depending on which of them. But the mattes are okay, but it's just an okay palette. It's nothing more to it. I think by now we have realized that Glam Light, they do different palettes in different labs, and this one is made in a lab that I don't prefer. So this is going to be at the very bottom. I did buy this one myself. I think there is a couple of palettes here that I bought myself, and then there are some that I've gotten in PR, but I'll try and let you know once we get to them. The second one is going to be the cherry one. This is the cherry Coca-Cola. Again, I did buy this one myself. I was like, the shimmer in this is nicer. This one has a little bit more sophisticated shimmers. I feel like they lay on a little bit better. It's still not the Rick and Morty quality. It's still not the Betty Boop quality, the Garfield, but it's okay. It's nice, it's fine, it's okay. It's better than the other one, but it's not the Glam Light that I know and love. I also think that for having 4 mattes and 4 shimmers, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more variety, even though we're trying to keep with the theme. I get it, but there could have been a little bit more variety in depth, maybe in the shadows that are in here. Now we're gonna come to something that is 95% preference, and that is the Morally Grey palette by Bella Beaute Bar. I love Bella Beaute Bar's formula. A lot of people are talking about their shimmers, and I think the Bella Beaute Bar shimmers are absolutely amazing. But what I really think is amazing are the mattes. The Bella Beaute Bar mattes are just incredible. Some shimmers, sometimes from the brand, ends up being a little bit chunky and flaky, and you have to spray them and make sure you don't get fallout. This one particularly is the color story. This is a very cool tone color story, and pretty much all the mattes except the pink here is gonna lean very grayish cool tone on the skin, which isn't my favorite color story to wear. I do think it's pretty cool that they're doing a 9-pan palette. I love that they're doing heart-shaped pans for Valentine's Day. I feel like it's an appropriate little nod to it. One thing I will say though, and a lot of people do point out that some brands will do these little divots when you can, like, you know, you can rearrange your magnetic things, but then they do different pan sizes. The good thing about having magnetic pans that you can move them around kind of gets destroyed by having different shaped pans in different palettes. So I almost think that maybe with this one, if you wanted to make heart-shaped pan, you could have saved a little bit of money and not made them magnetic, because maybe you don't care. When I build palettes, I very rarely, although I don't build palettes that much at all, but I very rarely build them with different shaped pans. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm the problem, but I think with this one, it's mostly about color story. This isn't a color story that I'm going to reach into, and it's pretty much the same with the next one, and this is Nars. It's called the Afterglow Tempting palette, and this one got sent to me as PR. This is actually the first eyeshadow palette that I've gotten from, well, that is not true. I actually got an eyeshadow palette from Nars when I was living in Sweden, but this is the first, like, I've just recently got on the Nars PR. I think this one is pretty good. For me, this isn't a color story that I'm gonna reach for a lot. I don't do a lot of neutral looks, and when I do, I am looking for a little bit more contrast in my neutral looks than this. And this has 1, 2, 3 kind of mid-tone mattes and then a bunch of different shimmers, and for me that isn't what I'm looking for when it comes to a neutral palette. I don't think honestly there's anything wrong with the quality. They're pretty shimmery, they're pretty beautiful, not as high impact as some indie shadows, but for being a Sephora brand, it's kind of like dimensional eyeshadows. But I am looking for way more contrast than this when I'm like falling in love with a neutral palette. So for me, it's just not the perfect neutral palette for me. We do have another neutral palette here though that I actually really enjoy. And again, it's just heading a little bit lower down because at the end of the day, it is a neutral palette, but I have been enjoying the Multi-Metals by Gloss Gods. And this one has a dark shade, a light shade, it has a couple of shimmers in here. I think this one is really pretty. I think that this one, if one of these three shades had been something that matched this middle shade even more, I think that this one could have been even farther up, because it's one thing that I really love in a neutral palette. It's when they give you the option of a mustard. That wins my heart over. I know this is a very personal thing. It's just something that I really prefer. And I think that three browns in the middle, even though I like this palette, I think the quality is really good. These are very high impact shimmers. I kind of wish that one of them had been a little bit of a different tone, still sticking with the neutral theming, but just being a little bit different. Next palette is going to be Preference 100%. The quality is beautiful. I am just not the person that reaches for an all shimmer palette. With that being said, I have reached for this one a couple of times because it is a little bit small and dainty, and it does have some really interesting and fun like special shades in here. This is the collaboration between Band to the Brow and Cleona, and the shadows are incredible quality. It makes so much sense that Millie, that is in this sphere known pretty good for being a reviewer of multichrome shadows, that she would do a multichrome palette with Cleona. With that being said, I am just not the person that can get head over heels for an all shimmer palette, and I have to be honest to myself and be like, are these shadows really pretty? Yes. Do I like them on the eyes? Yes. Will I forget this palette exists in my collection when I stop reviewing it because I never reach for all shimmer palettes? Yeah, probably. But if you do like all shimmer palettes, if you wanted to get an assortment of like just multichrome shadows and you don't want to pick your own shades, you just want to get like an already curated assortment, I do think that this palette is really nice. If I have any affiliate codes with any of these brands that are popping up as I talk about it, you can also find all of these palettes down in the description box. I will let you know like what they were called, where you can find them, and I will put them in the order as I'm mentioning them in case you are interested in any of these palettes. And this one is available at the Cleona website. There is nothing wrong with this palette. I'm just not the person to get excited about all shimmer palette. I know a lot of people will take a shimmer and put it on the lid and go out the door with mascara. Not me. Not me. I will do a matte shadow and buff it all around my eyes and mascara. Not that's me. And that's why all shimmer palettes are just really hard for me. It's hard for me to fall in love with something like that. That's just me. I actually had a really lot of fun with this one. This is the ColourPop New Moon palette. I am a lover of warm tones. I think cool tones are really amazing. And every time I review something that's warm tone, I get comments saying, people are sick of warm tones. We just want cool tones. I'm like, I'm not. Like, I love warm tones. I'm sick and tired of cool tones. I don't want to see any more cool tones. So when I see something that's a little bit more grungy and warm like this, it makes me super, super happy. I really like the mattes in here. The mattes are actually really, really, really nice. There are some of those like more pesky, they're like glitter infused shadows. They're technically eye safe, but I don't love them on the eyes. There's one here and then there's one here. I wish we didn't have to see those at all, to be honest, but I think the mattes are actually really good quality in this one. I think overall ColourPop did a real good job with this collection. I think the packaging is really nice. The color story is reflecting the tone of the movie, the new moon with the twilight and everything. And I just honestly think they did a pretty good job. It is hard to make an affordable collab be good quality, make sense, have good packaging, and I do think that ColourPop did a good job with that. And I do enjoy this palette. Will it be my favorite palette from ColourPop? Probably not. Mainly because I would have wanted something super bright, like bright and light in here as well. But again, we're getting into pesky little like just personal stuff. I have 3. Okay. There are some indie brands that release a lot of palettes. One of them, as of late, have been Nomad Cosmetics, and I actually have 3 different palettes to review here. And when is this from? I guess this is from like end of November, December, January, February. That's what these are gonna be. So in like 3.5 months, they've released 3 palettes. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's kind of a lot. And I will say, out of those palettes, the one that is my least favorite is the plastic palette, but this one has my favorite format. And I actually really hope we get to see palettes like this from Nomad again. This has raised text. The packaging is super sturdy, high quality, like paper packaging. I love a good cardboard packaging. It feels so sturdy and nice. It has a mirror in here, and this is the color story. For me, this is a color story that me personally, I would have tweaked a little bit. I feel like this one didn't need to be in this small of a palette. Either make it darker or make it lighter or make it shimmery. Just, I don't think that we needed this. Again, this is just personal preference. There's also black in here, and I feel like Nomad has black shadows in almost all of their palettes, and to also put them in this small palette, again, for me, that doesn't make sense. I think the most interesting colors are the 2 bright pinks here, and unfortunately, the pink shimmer here is more of a traditional shimmer, and I wish that this one would have had a little bit more oomph to it, because I feel like all of the other shimmers have this really nice oomph to it. They're very like high shine, cool, sparkly. Some of them are a little bit more special, but the pink here, the one that has the really cool shade and that matches the palette, doesn't really have that, which is a shame. Overall, I think the palette is really good, but again, and this is just, maybe this is just personal preference. I wish that the color story would have looked a little bit different now that it is smaller like this. And then we have the collaboration that they did with Lynn's makeup looks. And I really liked, again, that they did something smaller. I feel like maybe both of these, this one also, this might also have magnetic, that if you have a magnetic tool, you can like rearrange your shades. And at least with these, I think the pans are the same size, so you can actually like make your own palettes. I never do that. It's not something I want. It makes the palettes very heavy, but if that's something you're interested in, they do have that. I think this is a very curated rainbow palette. Nomad does have a tendency of doing a lot of bright palettes, and it makes sense when they are collabing with people that are in love with the brand, that they fell in love with the brand because of the bright rainbow palettes, and they want to make like their own version of it. I do like that this is matte heavy. I like the 2 shimmers that are in here, but overall, I do wish that it would have been a little bit more curated than it is. And also there is a very classic turquoisey blue here, and it's just not my personal, some of these shades are not my personal favorite undertone in shade, but overall the quality is really beautiful, and I do like it as a smaller rainbow palette, and it definitely fills a purpose in my collection because I love a good rainbow look every now and then, and this one does have some different undertones, even though they might not be my absolute favorite undertones. Now we're getting into a palette that I love this brand, but this is a color story that we have seen a lot as of late. I feel like there should be one more in here. I don't know where that one is. I had this Nomad Cosmetics palette as well. Did I already review that? I don't even know where it is. This one is the Snow Angel palette by Simply Posh Cosmetics. I really like their quality. Their shimmers are usually duochromes. They're really incredible. They do light. This time they did pastels, and then they do darker shades. The only reason why this one is not higher up is because this one has this very muted, dusky, cooler gray undertones to the shadow, which I like on me, but I don't love working with them. I don't like grays on me, and I don't like colorful shadows that are leaning a little bit gray. I do understand why other people love it, and even myself, as someone who has done palettes either as collabs or with Singe Beauty, there's gonna be shades that I put in palettes that might not always make 100% sense for me, but I understand that they fill a purpose for the bigger, the greater good. And this is definitely one of those color stories where it's like, I understand who it's for, but it's not my favorite color story from them. They have one that's called Aurora Lights. Absolutely love it. It's almost like a brighter version of this one. Dang, it is so windy outside. I feel like the whole world is just falling apart outside my window, which, I mean, it might be. This is the Glam Light, and what are they really calling it? This is the Wonka bar palette. I think it's just a collab with Willy Wonka. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think the collab is like with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Honestly, I have no idea. Who can keep track of the Glam Light collabs nowadays? Not me. Not this one. I have no idea. But I actually really enjoy this palette. I feel like this one is a nice neutral palette, and a nice purple palette is one in each side, to be honest. Is it my perfect neutral palette? Maybe not. I do wish that one of these had been a little lighter, but there are some contrast in here, and I really like the purple shades that were in here. I love the looks that I've done with this one, and I really enjoy like that there is this like icy shade here. There is like this purple blue duochrome shade. I love that there are purples, and then we have this pinky shade. If you want to bring it in on the pinky side, you can definitely mix and match between these two sides. This I feel is good Glam Light quality, and I kind of wish that I wish we didn't have to see any more of those not amazing Glam Light palettes in the future. I don't know about you. Next one is amazing quality. I love the quality of this palette, and that is the Lethal Cosmetics and Dexter's Laboratory. And that is the Lethal Cosmetics and the Dexter's collab, and woo, it is a little bit of a cumbersome packaging, but you've let me know that this one apparently is in the series. He's using this one to store blood from like his victims or something like that. I have never seen this series. Loving the shades that are in here. These two grays, not my favorite, won't reach for them, but at least there's only two grays in this palette. We have a black, this incredible shade that's over here. I really love, this is the one that had the blood drop spills in it. It looked like it when you mix it. It turns into this like almost pinky white high shine. It's just really pretty. The red mattes are incredible. Really like this palette. Again, I understand that the packaging is a collector thing. For me, someone who hasn't watched Dexter, do I love that the packaging looks like this? Maybe not. But again, it is a collab, and I do like that they go for it. I mean, I gotta say, they went for it, and I don't hate it. Everybody calm down. I did find the Nomad palette, and this is the Chamonix Après Ski. Can I just say, it has been my absolute personal delight these past couple of months or months since this one came out to hear my fellow creators trying to pronounce Chamonix. I love you all. You are the best. And it is Chamonix, which is a ski resort in the French part of the Alps. And this one is blue, green, and like a mauve pink. This one has a slight gray, like almost like a muted, desaturated feel to it. Okay, maybe I should rephrase. This doesn't really have that gray cast on it. It's more that it's a little bit desaturated. So there are some shades in here like these, or these greens here, or this one here. There are a little bit more on the brighter side, which for me works a little bit more in the way that I like to do my makeup, my preferences. There is really light shades, there are really dark shades. In all three of these, you can mix and match them together. I did a look when I mixed and matched them together. The shimmers are really pretty and different from each other. I think they did a really good job with this palette. And as I'm filming this, you have probably already seen it, but I have seen their next palette, and it's already, as you're seeing this, it's already revealed. And I am so excited about that palette. This one is a nice Nomad palette. If you like this color story, I think you will really enjoy this one. But the palette that came out after this one, which is Fairy Castles in Europe, I don't even remember what it's called. That palette, that is one of those palettes that I would be like, even if this isn't your color story and you've never tried Nomad, that palette might be the time to try it, because dang, that's such a cool palette, and I really enjoy how that one is looking. Now is coming a dark horse. Nobody thought this. Nobody thought that this palette would rank this highly, but I can tell you right now, this is going to be one of the most used palettes in my collection. When I travel, I like to bring either one bigger palette and a couple of mini palettes, or just I just grab a handful of mini palettes and chuck them in my cinch travel bag. And I've always traveled with the Natasha Denona Mini Xenon palette because it has an almost white, a black, and then it has some grays that I never use. But then Natasha Denona came out with this one. This is called the Mini Eye Sculpt palette. It is 5 mattes. I'm wearing an all matte look. I love an all matte look. You could do a look like the one I'm wearing today with this palette. And this is the kind of palette that is a perfect companion palette. You want to lighten up, you want to deepen down, you want to ground the look, you want to have a transition shade. This will not be the palette that I'm like dying over on itself, but this will be my absolute favorite travel companion. As you're seeing this, I might actually be out traveling because I am pre-filming this video a little bit. I'm going to Italy for a convention and I will bring this one. This will be perfect. This will be perfect for that convention. There is an almost white, there is a black, there is a light, medium, and a dark brown, and they're not too cool, not too warm. They're neutral browns. They're all matte. This is the perfect companion palette. And I realized looking at this, you're like, ugh, that is so boring. But the size, the conveniability, and how good quality I feel the Natasha Denona mattes are, I'm so excited about this one. I can already tell you that this one will see the world. There's another palette that the quality is amazing, and this is the Glaminatrix. This one is called the Entrancing Eyes. It has this little poofy, almost like, you know, the one that YSL has, like the quilted front, so it's like a faux leather. The quality of these shadows are amazing. The one thing I will say about Glaminatrix, there is a charm. Like I said, I love bringing mini palettes when I travel, and there is a charm to that, but their shimmers are too fragile for that. I got 4 of the palettes. There are 4 palettes. I've only actually tried this one because I'm like, I don't have time to dig into 4 new palettes. So I tried the one that is the berries. The quality is incredible. These shimmers, incredible. The mattes, absolutely amazing, but they're too fragile to be travel palettes, which for me defeats the purpose of a mini palette because I only use mini palettes when I travel. But one of my palettes from Glaminatrix came with the shadow broken, and it is not unusual for me to get a broken shade from Glaminatrix. They have an amazing quality, but they're a little bit fragile, so I would never travel with this mini palettes. Even though the quality is incredible, I would never travel with it because I'm sure there would be a glitter explosion. So that's just something to keep in mind. I know that when people saw this palette, they were like, this is not what we want. And I respect that. I really do. But I looked at this palette, the Natasha Denona Bloom palette, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is what I want. This is so beautiful. I really like this one. If I could choose, I would have picked one more dark shadow in here because I don't necessarily know if I think that this brown goes dark enough to be enough for the entire palette. Either this one or this one, for me, I wouldn't have minded if it went even darker. But with that being said, I love this palette. I think it's beautiful. I think it's incredible. I love the undertones. I love this one. It's like a pinky shade with almost like a wet blue purple sheen to it, and I love personally when neutral palettes include something like this because it's like kind of wet effect. You put it on the lid and it looks a little wet because it has that almost like blue purple sheen with the pinky peachy base. It gives a wet effect, and I think it's so smart when neutral palettes have those kind of shadows. I like the shimmers in here. I feel like they're all very different. I feel like there are some pinky tones, but mostly there are peachy, corally, warm tones, and I said it, listen, sue me. I love a warm palette. I think this is beautiful. I think the shimmers are incredible. I love that there are different kinds of shimmers in here. Like this one is very sparkly and high reflective, and then we have this one that's like more traditional, laying very smooth on the skin, like it just is smooth, a little bit more demure kind of metallic. Absolutely beautiful. There is a topper, like I said, there is that wet effect. I'm sorry, I think this is great. I really enjoy it. I think it's beautiful. I've enjoyed using it. End of story. Then we have the Love Language. This is the new palette between Oden's Eye and Morgan Turner. And this is a really pretty palette that is made into different quads. So you have a little purple quad and almost a little bit more of a, it's like a, almost like a more cool tone. This is like a brighter purple. And then we have this like almost muted grayish purple here together with these little bit more bluish purples. We have a pinky quad, we have a neutral quad. It is very Morgan Turner, and she also has done something like I talked about before that I do in my collab palettes, or I do in the palettes that I do, and she talked about it in her video, that she put some shades in here that aren't necessarily her cup of tea, but she knows it makes sense for the palette, and she knows that other people will enjoy having them in here, like this super bright metallic pink. I really enjoyed that this pink was in here. I'm happy she put it in, and even though, like she said, it's not her favorite shade, it does make sense in the palette. And I think that that is a sign of someone that understands makeup and understands that not everyone's preference, like my preference isn't everyone's preference, and that doesn't mean that neither one of us are right or wrong. So I think it's really smart to put that in here. You can go bright pink, you can go a little bit more pinky peachy. There is some purples, brights, dark, light with the neutrals. I think the palette is really beautiful. I think she did a really, really good job with this one. And I also think she brought something different to Oden's Eye, because I love Oden's Eye. And they do a lot of things that I really love, which is really like impactful, sometimes really dark or murky or really bright and colorful. And this one is something like in between. And I think it's really smart for them to have Morgan come in and curate a palette for them, because she has just a different view on makeup, and sometimes that's really, really refreshing. Let's talk about the next Blend Bunny palette, and this is the Beauty Below palette. This packaging is absolutely incredible. It has that like holographic layer on it. The packaging is stunning. I hope they always keep doing these kind of elaborated packagings in the future as well. This one is magnetic, so this is probably the heaviest palette in my collection. It's a little bit too heavy, and that's just my preference. It has a mirror, and the color story is really interesting. I do think that it's maybe a smidgen, a little bit too all over the place, but again, I think still there are so many possibilities in here, and I really like that she's starting to do some different, more curated color stories. One thing that I do miss from like the traditional, but like the classic Blend Bunny palettes is that they usually go very light to very dark, and this one, according to me, is missing the very light part. But I also know that there are people out there that don't want light shades and don't want dark shades, so I do appreciate that there are palettes out there for people who just really don't want the light shades at all. Me personally, I would have wanted to have one in here, but again, this is magnetic, so if I really wanted to, I can move it around. I just will not. I never break up, at least not permanently, like already pre-made palettes. I like to have them as they are, but I do think that this palette is really beautiful. And I will say these past two palettes from Blend Bunny, they have really made me feel like super excited about the brand. Like, I cannot wait to see what the brand comes up with. Now we have one of my favorite palettes from Gourmande Girls that they have ever done, and this is the Bitten palette. This is so pretty. I love their sleek packaging, and just holding these two, because this one is so much more like sleeker, and like maybe this one wouldn't hurt to have a little bit more weight to it, but overall the other one is just so heavy. I also would like to see in the future a little bit more made with the packaging, but the color story of this Bitten palette is so fun. This is a Valentine's palette, but it's having more of a almost spooky vibe to it, which I really enjoy. It's almost like Morticia Adams is celebrating Valentine's Day. Elvira is celebrating Valentine's Day. I'm enjoying the more like dark drapes, dreary castles, a midnight toast in a goblet of blood kind of a feeling. Loving these shades, incredible formulas in here, and I love that there are some unexpected things that you could do in here as well, especially with this one that's called Hunted, which is this like almost warm gray, and then we have like red and purple, and there are a little bit more neutral leaning shades in here as well. I really enjoyed this palette. I really enjoyed this quality. There are no duds in here, and I'm just so happy for Gourmande Girls for having such a beautiful palette. Cannot wait to see what's coming next. Now we have an old palette that's been re-promoted or re-released in a honestly better formulation and with smaller pans and more shades. And this is the Unearthly Cosmetics Not Normal palette. They had this one before, and they had them in those huge pans that Unearthly used to have, and I'm so happy they don't have those anymore. Their pans are still very big, but it's just more shades now, and there are some really interesting notes in here. We have some purples, we have some like muted, almost again like a little bit like dreary purples. There are greens, and there are some really interesting tones here. You have these like more murky greens, you have really bright ones, a little bit more on the cool tones, and then you have some neutrals, and this new one in here that is like it's like a green to an almost golden peach. It's such an interesting high impact metallic shade, and I just think that this palette is so beautiful, and I'm so excited that the owner decided to reformulate and re-release this palette, because the color story was always great, but now the execution is 10 out of 10, and it's just, I'm really enjoying this. Do you know what palettes are next? Because we have 2 more palettes to talk about, and when I show you these palettes, you're probably going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes 100% sense, because I know that everybody is fully aware that I am highly devoted to Cosmic Beauty and their palettes, and this is the Lovers palette that they came up with. This is the Valentine's palette, and I just think it is so smart to do like a tarot inspired palette for Valentine's Day with the Lovers. This palette opens like this. There is a big mirror in here, and this is the color story. This is almost like bright pastels. This also has like almost like a muted sagey green corner, almost a blue, and then like a cool tone with the silver and the black, a almost rosy, slightly peachy leaning neutrals, and then a pink corner with a dark berry. The colors in here are incredible. The shimmers are incredible. There's a couple of special shades in here. Per usual, Cosmic Beauty just brings the quality, and I am so enjoying how this palette is looking and the quality of it, and I think this is so beautiful. And per usual, I just cannot wait to see what the brand comes out with. I think this is absolutely stunning. But I can't deny that there is a palette that immediately stole my heart. I saw this one and I just went, and I am so in love with the Monk palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. Look at this. Did you hear me talk about warm shades? Look at this. This is exactly what I like. It is yellow leaning, mustard's yellow, this brown. There's like these oranges here that are leaning more on the yellow side over the red side, which is just something that I really love. The shimmers are incredible. This marbled, almost like an icy orange. I didn't even know that that was possible. These are just absolutely incredible. The quality is great. Love the looks, love the undertones. I really think they killed it with this one. It is such a good palette. If you didn't watch my latest ranking palettes where I ranked every single one of the palettes that I've tried in 2024, which was over 100 palettes, my number 1 palette was from this brand. And now, after trying this one, I'm like, this one will surely be somewhere in the top of this year as well, because I love this one, and I love how bold it is to come out with something that is this warm and yellow in a time where, I'm gonna be honest, there is quite a lot of people saying they just want cool tones, but I don't. I want this. I don't want the gray ones. I don't want those. I look casket ready. I just want to look warm and yummy, and I really love this palette. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Let me know if you tried any of these palettes and if you agree with me. Remember, it's all about preference at the end of the day. I can talk about quality all I want and tell you this one I prefer and this one blends like this, but at the end of the day, most of these palettes are really great quality palettes, and it comes down to the little quirks, like how easy is it to design different kind of look, like how happy do you feel working with, how easy is it to work with these things, and how does it hold up throughout the day. Those things are important as well. If you're wondering about any of these palettes, they're gonna be in the description box. I hope you're having an amazing day. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.